With a remake of Max Payne 1 and 2 on the horizon from original series creators Remedy Entertainment, I, Suggestive Gaming, figured now would be a great time to go over the story of the original trilogy as it stands today. As many of you already know, the first two Max Payne games were developed by Remedy Entertainment, alongside Rockstar Games, before the Remedy team sold the rights to the series to Rockstar's parent company Take-Two Interactive in order to explore other ventures. This led to Rockstar Games developing their own third entry to the series, with Remedy acting only as consultants during the process. While this puts Max Payne 3 in a bit of its own category, with Remedy omitting it and its story in their upcoming remake of the series, I'm still going to cover it, as well as its comic book prequel, which was co-written by Remedy's head writer Sam Lake. On a related note, Max Payne 2 features an alternate ending, and considering the following media was just ambiguous enough to allow it to be potentially canon, I'm going to go over both possible endings. Just please keep any questionable canonicity in mind, and don't take anything I say as gospel. I'm just a guy in my attic making YouTube videos. As always on this series, I'm going to focus on the story of the mainline 3 titles in this video, meaning the 2008 film adaptation of the first game starring Marky Mark and Mila Kunis will mercifully be skipped over. I'm also choosing to focus on following the story of Max Payne, the character, on his journey, so I may detail certain events when Max learns about them as opposed to when they actually occurred, just to keep the impact of certain twists and reveals. Now, before we begin, I would be extremely remiss not to bring attention to the late and extremely great James McCaffrey, the massive talent behind the voice and later the face of Max Payne. Unfortunately, the world lost James last December, shortly after his final performance in Remedy's Alan Wake 2 as Alex Casey, a not-so-subtle reincarnation of his iconic performance as Max Payne. It's yet to be seen if James's work will be included in Remedy's upcoming remake, but either way, his absence will surely be felt. I just wanted to take this time to draw some attention to the man behind Max's voice to celebrate James McCaffrey and the work he gave us. Thank you, James. Now, without further ado, this is what you need to know about Max Payne. Our story begins sometime in the 1970s, where we find a young boy named Max Payne, living with his alcoholic mother, Helen, and his father, Jack, a rough-edged and abusive Vietnam veteran suffering from PTSD. While Max is able to find some solace in the stories his maternal grandfather, an ancient literature professor, tells him, Max's childhood soon takes an even more tragic turn. Within 3 years of each other, both his mother and father pass away, leaving the boy orphaned. In the early 1990s, Max, now an adult, begins working as an NYPD officer. Max and his partner, Alex Balder, find themselves in the middle of a drug war between the criminals of the city and the police force, focusing on a designer drug called Valkyr that's made its way onto the streets. Alex's brains combine perfectly with Max's brawn, and the pair quickly earn the reputation as hero cops. At some point in the mid to late 90s, Max stops a pair of men from mugging a woman, an employee for the district attorney named Michelle, in an alleyway. The pair quickly strike up a romance and marry each other 6 months later, with their daughter, Rose, being born in the beginning of 1998. Meanwhile, Max and Alex Balder split as partners, the latter taking a position in the Federal Drug Enforcement Administration. While Alex tries to recruit Max into his new team, consisting of himself and another DEA agent known only as BB, Payne refuses, electing not to take on the additional risk now that he has a family to care for. On the night of August 22, 1998, Max returns home from the station. As soon as he enters, he immediately notices that something is off when he spots signs of a break-in, with his family nowhere to be seen. The family phone begins to ring, and Max answers to hear an unknown woman on the other end of the line, asking him to confirm that she has called the Payne residence. When he does, asking the woman to dial 911 while he searches for his family, she simply replies that she cannot help him before hanging up. Max draws his firearm and heads to the second floor of his home, where he spots more signs of a struggle before hearing his wife and child cry out as a man's voice is heard screaming in agony as gunshots ring out. two seemingly crazed men in matching hospital gowns then attack Max from inside Grace's room, and when he fights them off, he is met with his greatest fear: his lifeless daughter laying in her crib, slain by the intruders. After killing one more attacker on his way to the master bedroom, the horrific situation somehow gets even worse when Max enters to find his wife, Michelle, also lifeless on their bed. A powerless Max is then left to cradle his wife's body as he screams out from his pain and sorrow. After the murders, it's learned that the killers had been high on Valkyr. Now with a vengeance and nothing left to lose, Max joins Alex in the DEA to work the Valkyr case. It takes Max and his team 3 years to finally get a break in the case, when in 2001, they learn that Jack Lupino, a mob boss involved with the Puccinello crime family, is involved with trafficking the drug. Max goes undercover, infiltrating the mafia family, with Alex and BB being the only people aware of his true identity. 2 months into his assignment, Max gets an urgent call from BB to meet Alex at the Roscoe Street subway station to deal with something regarding Jack Lupino. While Max again feels something wrong about the situation, he nonetheless makes his way to the Roscoe Street station. As he begins to look for Alex, however, Max instead finds a dead transit worker and a swarm of mobsters. Max fights his way through a trail of criminals, eventually leading him to an unused subway, abandoned for over 50 years. Soon, Max discovers that the mobsters had blown a hole in one of the subway's walls, leading them directly into a bank vault. After taking them out, Max finds that the criminals were after bonds held by the Aesir Corporation, a pharmaceutical company that's been seeing some wild recent success. Max blasts his own way out of the bank vault, re-emerging into the Roscoe Street subway station, where he finds Alex separated from him by a locked gate. The two discuss that if Lupino is behind the bank theft, they've got to find a way to unlock the gate so they can leave together. Before their conversation can even come to a close, however, a gunshot rings out, and Max is forced to watch his partner die in front of him, just out of reach as his unknown assailant runs off. As the NYPD begin to swarm the station, Max determines that Jack Lupino must have had Alex killed, hoping that his partner would stay and be blamed for the murder. Instead, Max decides to take Lupino head-on, maintaining his cover and returning to a hotel the mobster uses for his illicit businesses. When Max asks the two enforcers, the Finito brothers, where the boss is, the pair simply answer by pulling their weapons on him, revealing that Max's cover had obviously already been blown. After killing them, Max finds a letter from Jack Lupino to his right-hand man, Vinny Gognitti, detailing an upcoming Valkyr deal. Max also learns that this deal will be watched over by hitman and hired muscle Rico Muerte, who is staying in a room at the hotel. Max heads to the room, overhearing a radio broadcast announcing Alex Balder's death, which has been determined to be linked to the Valkyr drug, with Max Payne being the prime suspect. Payne reaches Rico Muerte's room, and while it's booby-trapped with a shotgun, he's able to enter it and find another letter, this one written by none other than the head of the mafia family, Don Angelo Punchinello. Angelo states in the letter that Muerte is to overlook the drug deal as payback for the family bailing him out of jail after a previous screw-up. As a heavy winter storm rages outside, Max takes an elevator down into the bowels of the hotel to search for the room the Valkyr deal is set to take place in. He soon finds it and kills the mobsters participating in the deal, finding a case of the Valkyr drug and thousands of dollars in dirty money. In the bar next door, Max finds the man who was supposed to be protecting the deal, Rico Muerte, distracted with a call girl named Candy Dawn. After a quick firefight, Max emerges victorious and finds the hotel's telephone switchboard, tapping into it to try to listen to the various calls going in and out of the mafia stronghold. Surprisingly, Max overhears a conversation from the dying Rico Muerte, warning Vinny Gognitti with his final breath that Max Payne has killed most of his men and is still on the loose. With no luck finding Jack Lupino at the hotel, Max decides to search a block of tenement buildings owned by the mobster. As he arrives, Max finds himself in the middle of another war, as an explosion goes off, taking out a floor of one of the buildings. A black car then speeds away from the wreckage, containing the head of the local Russian mob and enemy of the Punchinello family, Vladimir Lem. After the destruction, Max enters the newly remodeled building to continue his search. Strangely, after he enters the building, Max hears a payphone ringing in the entrance hall. He answers, and the man on the other end introduces himself as Alfred Woden, warning Max that the police are on their way, and they know Max is there. On cue, the NYPD arrive outside, and Deputy Chief Jim Bravura gets on a bullhorn to demand Max drop his weapons and exit the building for questioning. Max soon finds Vinny Gognitti in his room and fires off a shot, hitting the mobster in the abdomen before he is able to shuffle off and escape as reinforcements arrive. Max fights them off, finding a letter Vinny was writing to Don Punchinello, claiming that Jack Lupino has lost his mind. Max pursues the wounded Gognitti, who proceeds to jump onto the top of a train. Max follows suit and hops onto the following one. The pair disembark at another rundown building filled with mobsters. Max is again forced to fight through the mafioso forces before he finally corners Vinny and shoots him once again, forcing him to give up the location of his boss, Jack Lupino, a gothic nightclub called Ragnarok. When Max arrives at the club, he fights through Lupino's heavies before finding signs that Lupino's troubling behavior seems tied to something otherworldly, with remnants of deadly cult-like rituals scattered throughout Ragnarok. Max also finds threatening letters from Punchinello to Lupino, hoping to curb his strange behavior by threatening Jack with the Trio, the Don's most notorious henchmen. Soon, Max finds Lupino in the flesh, pumped full of the Valkyr drug and ranting. Max kills the mobster's men before finally taking down the drug-filled Jack Lupino, emptying his pistol's magazine into the man to ensure he stays down with the effects of the drug. This distraction allows an unknown woman to get the drop on Max. She pulls a pistol on him, one which he quickly matches with his own. The woman introduces herself as Mona Sachs, the twin sister of Lisa Punchinello, the Don's wife. Mona states that she's also after the Don, wanting to get revenge on him for his treatment of her sister. She also reveals that it was Punchinello himself who had Alex killed, not Lupino, who was too drugged out to do anything of the sort. The pair lower their weapons, and Mona offers Max a drink, which he happily accepts. Shortly after taking it, however, Max begins to feel drowsy, and Mona admits that she drugged him so he wouldn't end up getting her sister killed. Max then passes out and falls into a dream, or rather a nightmare, reliving the events of the night of his family's murder. In it, he recalls Michelle's diary, in which she wrote about working in the district attorney's office when an army dossier about something called Valhalla was mistakenly delivered to her. After his guilt manifests itself into Max seeing himself as his wife's killer, Payne awakens to find himself tied to a chair in front of a man holding a baseball bat. The man, Frankie the Bat Niagara, beats Max with his weapon before taking a break, leaving him alone. Max is able to break free from his restraints and realizes that he's back in the basement of Lupino's hotel. Max grabs the very bat used to beat him and wields it as he fights through Punchinello's men on the hunt for Frankie. Instead, he finds his calling card, a Captain Baseball Bat Boy comic strip. Max follows the clue and overhears a mobster speaking on a payphone, learning that Punchinello's men stopped Mona from killing the Don and are currently taking her to the Trio. Max eventually finds Frankie at the same hotel bar where he had previously taken out Rico Morte. Max adds another name to the list of fallen mobsters at the bar as he takes his revenge and kills Frankie. As Max drives away from the hotel, he's tailed by Vladimir Lem, who gets Max to pull over. Vlad then makes an offer to Max, the Russian mob's assistance in taking down Punchinello, in exchange for Max's help with reclaiming a cargo ship, the Charon, that was taken under siege by a traitor named Boris Dime. Max agrees, and the group drive to the riverfront. Max fights his way through the docks, discovering that Rico Muerte was in town not just to watch over the drug deal, but also to assassinate the mayor. Max determines that this order must have come from somebody more powerful, and perhaps more in the shadows than just the Mafia. Max soon finds Boris Dime and kills him before reclaiming the Charon. Max takes a stockpile of guns and ammunition from the ship's cargo hold as payment before returning to the dock. There, Vlad offers his personal assistance, but Max decides that he wants to take Punchinello down on his own. He then calls the Don himself, arranging a meeting to cut a deal at the mafioso's restaurant. There, Max springs a trap, and the entire restaurant goes up in flames around him. Luckily, he is able to escape into the sewers, and when he emerges, he finds Vlad arriving to investigate the smoke. Vlad gives Max a ride to Punchinello's manor, where Payne discovers that somebody, most likely Mona, had already burst in through the back door and taken out the guards. Max then finds himself face to face with the mighty trio. After successfully taking down 2 of Punchinello's 3 most notorious henchmen, Max finds the lifeless body of either Mona or her twin sister Lisa. Just then, a phone in the room rings, and it is again Alfred Woden on the other end. Woden warns Max that an armed helicopter has landed on the manor grounds, and Max hurries off to kill the final member of the trio. After finally eliminating the last of Punchinello's bodyguards, Max finally finds the Don in his room. Punchinello claims that he was only following orders from somebody more powerful, a woman he assumes is high up in the government. More guards then burst in and kill Don Angelo Punchinello, forcing Max to open fire on them. He's quickly outnumbered, however, when the powerful woman the Don mentions arrives with her heavily armed security force in tow. The woman injects Max with an overdose of Valkyr, and he once again falls into a horrible nightmare of the night his family died. Strangely, Max's drug-induced vision throws him into a looping episode where he believes himself to be in a graphic novel and then a computer game. After navigating a black void containing only a path of the blood of his loved ones, Max sees himself as his family's killer, and he's forced to shoot this apparition of himself to death. As Max relives a memory of his wife trying to tell him about the memo she received at work, he snaps out of this haze, finding himself outside. Max recalls the woman mentioning the cold steel foundry outside the city, so he heads there to try to get the drop on her. As the winter storm rages on, Max infiltrates the foundry and fights the woman's men inside. He then overhears a command on a walkie-talkie to initiate Operation Deadeyes, which he assumes to be a self-destruct cleanup operation. Max finds an elevator and takes it down into the depths below Cold Steel, revealing a secret facility for something called Project Valhalla. As the self-destruct sequence initiates, Max discovers that Project Valhalla was a US Army operation to develop a serum to enhance the abilities of soldiers during the Gulf War. This project led to the creation of the Valkyr drug. When the memo detailing the project was accidentally leaked to Michelle Payne, the Valkyr test subjects were dispatched to the Payne residence to prevent compromise. Max, now realizing the scope of everything going on, then receives a message from his partner at the DEA, BB, asking him to meet at a garage to discuss a plan. Max realizes that Alex's murder must have been an inside job, with BB now planning to lure Max into a trap of his own to finish the job. Max meets with BB and confronts him about his double cross. BB simply states that this goes way higher than Max can even imagine. A car then pulls up and drives the backstabbing agent out of the garage. Max fights through BB's men in the garage, eventually reaching his former partner, whose car had crashed. After one final fight, Max avenges Alex's death by killing BB. A nearby payphone begins to ring, and Max again finds that the call is from Alfred Woden, who tells him to come to a nearby Asgard building to learn more about the mysterious woman. Woden also cryptically states that we are expecting you. At the building, Max finally meets Woden face to face, and the pair enter the building together. Inside, Woden introduces Max to the Inner Circle, a secret society with ties to the origins of Project Valhalla. Woden then explains that the mysterious woman is Nicole Horn, president of Aesir Corporation and a key figure in Project Valhalla. When funding was cut off from the project, Horn refused to quit, eventually developing Valkyr secretly through her pharmaceutical company. The Circle then offers Max protection if he kills Nicole Horn. Suddenly, Horn's men burst in and shoot up the building, killing all of the inner circle save for Alfred Woden, who somehow survives. Max escapes and finds Woden's office, noticing a videotape on his desk. He soon learns that the tape contains footage of Alfred Woden with call girl Candy Dawn, who had secretly filmed their interaction and sold it to Nicole Horn, who was now using it to blackmail the inner circle. Max decides to hold on to this copy of the tape as a contingency in case Woden decides to go back on his deal. Max fights his way through hordes of Horn's men and escapes the building, driving to the Aesir Corporation's headquarters to finally confront Nicole Horn. Max bursts in, guns blazing, and takes out the security on the tower's lobby. He then hears an elevator ding, and Mona Sachs emerges, again holding a gun to him. Nicole's voice is then heard over the PA system, instructing Mona to kill Max. Sachs instead decides to team up with Payne to take down Horn, who's obviously the greater evil. Suddenly, gunshots ring out, and Mona is hit, lifelessly falling back into the elevator. The elevator's doors close as it goes up, and Max fights off Mona's attackers. When the elevator returns down, however, the doors open, and Max is shocked to see a lot of blood, but no body, leaving Mona's fate unknown. Max finally takes the elevator up to Horn's penthouse, preparing for his final battle. There, he finally confronts the woman, who runs off, leaving her guards to take care of Max. He fights past them, avoiding an armed helicopter as he chases Nicole up to the tower's rooftop. As Horn boards the helicopter to escape, Max destroys a massive antenna on top of the roof. As the antenna falls, it crushes the helicopter, bringing it and Nicole Horn crashing to the ground below. Max is then left alone, standing in the wake of the destruction as the police arrive. An NYPD chopper arrives with Deputy Chief Jim Bravura inside, instructing Payne to drop his weapon and surrender, which he finally does. The NYPD then take Max into custody, and as he's taken away, he sees Alfred Woden among the onlookers. Woden simply grins, and as Max is placed in the back of a police cruiser, he shares that same grin. True to his word, Woden helps clear Max of all charges. After some convincing, Jim Bravura allows him back into the NYPD. When a serial killer begins to target newlyweds in the city, Max poses with homicide detective Valerie Winterson as a freshly married couple. Their plan ends up working, and the killer takes the bait, allowing the pair to finally bring him to justice. One night in 2003, Max is on patrol when he hears a call reporting shots fired in a warehouse owned by Vladimir Lem. Max arrives and immediately hears gunshots and a woman screaming. He calls for backup before heading in alone to investigate. Inside, Max seemingly finds the source of the commotion, a television playing an action drama. Unsatisfied, Max finds a man nearby, wearing a uniform for a company called Squeaky Cleaning. Payne questions the man, who claims to just be cleaning up the place. The man claims that there's a gun workshop upstairs, which must be where the shots were coming from. Max follows the man to the workshop, but when they arrive, the cleaner pulls a gun on the detective, forcing Payne to kill him. Reinforcements, also dressed as cleaners, then arrive, and Max takes them out as well. Soon he discovers that the guns the Russians had been storing in the facility had been ransacked. A message on an answering machine from Vlad reveals that the woman meant to watch over the warehouse is named Annie Finn. Max then finds Annie being held at gunpoint by two of the cleaners, and while he tries to step in, he is unable to prevent her execution. Max takes out the cleaners who killed Annie, forcing the rest of the crew to rush to a cargo elevator to escape. When the doors open, however, they're met by a different gun, this one wielded by none other than a surviving Mona Sachs. After killing the cleaners, Mona simply tells Max that the pair need to stop meeting like this, before stepping back into the elevator and taking her leave. Max takes the next elevator down, finding the remaining cleaners leaving in a squeaky cleaning van, overhearing them mention the name Kaufman. Max tries to fire at the driver, and as the van speeds towards him, he is pulled away at the last second by an arriving Valerie Winterson, just narrowly preventing him from being hit. The pair return to the station, where they speak with Jim Bravura, who puts Max on the cleaner's case while tasking Detective Winterson with investigating the murder of Senator Sebastian Gate. As it turns out, Mona Sachs is the main suspect in the murder case, but Max holds off on telling Winterson that he saw her at Vlad's warehouse. Max tries to look up any information on squeaky cleaning or somebody named Kaufman, but his searches come up blank. With nothing else to go on, Max decides to look for Vlad to learn who would attack him. Max drives to the old Ragnarok nightclub, now purchased by Vlad and renamed to Vodka. When Max arrives, he finds the doors locked, and a panicked Vlad pleads with him from inside to assist him in an ongoing shootout. Max enters through the back and takes out the mobsters attacking Vlad's men. Max soon finds Vlad's right-hand man, Mike the Cowboy, and the pair fight together to get to Vlad. When they reach him, they find Vlad in a shootout with Punchinello underboss Vinny Gognitti. As Vinny spots Max and hears the NYPD backup arriving outside, he decides to cut his losses and escapes while he still can. Vlad then informs Max that Vinny has been wiping out all competition in the black market gun trade as part of a deal he's made with someone very powerful. Max returns to his apartment and passes out on the couch, awakening during the night when a note is slipped under his door. Or so he thinks. Max gets to the door to realize he's in a warped dream, seeing Mona as a corpse before he's arrested and brought in for questioning, forcing him to kill his own partners in the Force. As this premonition of guilt comes to a close, Max actually awakens to a knock at his door. Max opens it to again meet Mona Sachs face to face and pistol to pistol. After he invites her in, Mona informs Max that they're both in danger, as a contract has been placed on both of their heads. While Max threatens to take Mona in for her involvement in the senator's murder, he looks out the window to see a sniper lining up his shot. Max and Mona jump out of the way of the gunfire, and the woman runs off, leaving Max behind to make his way to the sniper's room. There, Max finds a bevy of surveillance equipment, revealing that whomever is after him had been watching his every move for weeks. Cleaners then arrive and plant an explosive in Max's apartment, sending it off and destroying Payne's residence. Max then works with the apartment complex's other inhabitants to fight off the cleaners before returning to the station. There, Max calls a number Mona left behind at his apartment, and she gives him an address to meet her, warning him to come alone. Max goes to the location, an old abandoned funhouse based on a 90s TV show called Address Unknown, and walks through the attraction to eventually reach the backstage area where Mona had been taking up residence. Max finds Mona in the shower, and as she gets dressed, she informs Max about who is actually after them, the Inner Circle, aiming to take down everyone who knows of their existence. Mona claims that she has a contact inside the circle, someone other than Alfred Woden, who is willing to talk, and she offers to take Max to him. As the pair pull up to his location, however, they find squeaky cleaning vans outside, with a trail of bodies leading in. The pair then work together to get past the invading cleaners to reach the office of the contact, named Corcoran. Unfortunately, Corcoran is already dead. Refusing to leave empty-handed, Max looks around, spotting a photograph of Corcoran, Senator Gate, and Alfred Woden, proving that the Inner Circle is somehow involved. As Max leaves the building, he's met by the cleaners, led by the Kaufman he had previously heard mention of. Kaufman turns out to have no real importance, as Max kills him and his group of backup after a quick gunfight. Max takes an elevator back to the lobby to find an unlikely company waiting for him, the NYPD, led by Detective Winterson. Winterson, who has Mona in custody, is shocked and confused to find her fellow officer. Back at the station, Jim is enraged at Max for working with Mona, a fugitive, behind the department's back. Max justifies his actions by claiming it would get them closer to the senator's killer, but Bravura reaches the end of his patience and demands Max's guns, taking him off the case. Max goes to his desk to write his report, intending to draw all of the connections between the murder of Senator Gate, the Inner Circle, the Cleaners, and Vinnie Gognitti clearly enough for Winterson to see. Her desk phone begins to ring, and when Max answers it, the caller abruptly hangs up. Max goes to speak with Winterson, seeing her questioning a witness and strangely brushing over any details involving the Cleaners. When Max talks to the witness himself, the man states that Winterson definitely isn't interested in hearing about the Cleaners, only Mona Sachs. Max then returns to Winterson's desk, overhearing her stating to an unknown party that Payne and Mona would take the fall. Max confronts her about leaking information, but she simply storms off, claiming that she had to inform the proper authorities. With his suspicions for Winterson now raised, Max goes to the holding cells to speak with Mona. Mona tells Max to call Alfred Woden to confirm that she's telling the truth, but when Max tries to, his call goes to a voicemail belonging to Senator Alfred Woden. Just as Max leaves a message telling Woden to call him back, the building suddenly shakes from an explosion upstairs. As the police begin to rush to the ground floor, Max suspects a diversion at play. His suspicions are confirmed as he sees a group of Cleaners entering the cell block. In the chaos, Mona is able to escape her cell and run out of the station. Max tries to follow Mona, but quickly loses sight of her just as a familiar car pulls up. Its driver, Vladimir Lem, greets Max, who gets into the passenger seat, noticing a life-sized costume of Captain Baseball Bat Boy in the back. When Max asks about it, Vlad simply states that it's his Trojan horse in the war with Vinnie Gognitti. The two talk, and Vlad confirms that Gognitti made a deal with the Inner Circle. Vlad drops Max off at the funhouse, and Mona arrives right after. Max follows Mona inside, and the pair share a passionate moment together before they're interrupted by the sound of explosions and gunfire. Max and Mona are then forced to run as the Cleaners advance on them. The pair are separated, and Max is forced to fight the Cleaners while Mona provides cover fire. Max follows the Cleaners to their vans as they try to escape, but this time he's able to hop inside one of them to catch a ride to their destination, a Castling Insurance Company's construction site. After telling Mona the location over a radio call, the pair again work together, with Max infiltrating the site while Mona watches over him with a rifle. When a group of Cleaners spot Max and open fire, they accidentally hit a stash of explosives, triggering a blast that Payne just barely escapes. While Max is able to clear the blast by jumping out of a window, his rough landing leaves him knocked unconscious. Mona then covers Max by taking out the Cleaners from afar while Max recovers. When Max and Mona finally regroup, a third party, Detective Winterson, unfortunately joins them. Winterson holds them at gunpoint, and Mona states that she's one of the Inner Circle, sent to kill her. Mona goes for her own gun, and Winterson takes aim in return. Suddenly, in the scuffle, a gunshot rings out. Surprisingly to even Max himself, the bullet was fired from his own gun, into Winterson's chest. Max tells Mona to run as he stays behind to deal with the approaching cops. As she does, the wounded Winterson grabs her gun and fires 2 shots, both of which hit Max, who falls off the building to the ground below. Detective Valerie Winterson dies from her wounds, while Max narrowly survives. He's taken to a nearby hospital where he once again falls into a nightmarish fantasy. While recovering, the Cleaners storm the hospital, laying waste to all in their path to Payne, including Jim Bravura, who is shot by the intruders, although he narrowly survives. Max is able to fight his way out of the hospital, immediately driving to Alfred Woden's manor. There, Max confronts Woden, who reveals that he is dying of cancer, which has created a power struggle within the Inner Circle. Alfred then reveals that the true mastermind behind the conspiracy and the person who put the hits out on Max and Mona was Vladimir Lem. Lem, a member of the Inner Circle, saw a weakness in his one-time mentor, Woden, and staged an uprising, assassinating all those who opposed him with the squeaky cleaning crew. Max returns to the vodka nightclub where he fights Vlad's men, including Mike the Cowboy, which was really sad because I liked that guy. After killing them all, Max finds no sign of their boss, but does listen to a voicemail left by Winterson before her death, proclaiming to Vlad that she'd take care of Max and Mona at the construction site. Max drives to Vinny Gogniti's place to search for Vlad, but instead finds the mobster stuck inside the Captain Baseball Bat Boy costume, rigged with explosives. Max agrees to help Vinny escape in exchange for Vlad's location. After helping Vinny escape Vlad's men, Max drives to the funhouse in hopes to find Mona for her help in disarming the costume's bombs. When Max arrives, however, he instead finds Vlad, waiting for his old friend. Vlad holds the detonator to the suit explosives while Mona fights her way to get a shot on him. Vlad then reveals that Alfred Woden, who Mona had been working for all along, was the one who sent the Project Valhalla files to the district attorney in an attempt to scare him, leading to the death of Payne's family as a result. Vlad then shoots Max, leaving him unconscious. Mona gets a view of Vlad, but unfortunately too late, as she is forced to powerlessly watch as Vlad presses the button, triggering the explosive in the Captain Baseball Bat Boy suit, killing Vinny and leaving Max severely wounded. Vlad drives off with his men in the wake of the explosion, and Mona dives into the burning building to pull Max out. While unconscious, Max has one more nightmare, where he again blames himself for all of the deaths around him. That is, until Mona wakes him and gets him out of the burning building. Max then drives himself and Mona to Woden's manor, where they believe Vlad will be gearing up to finish off his former mentor to finally take control of the Inner Circle. There, the pair fight through the cleaners, eventually reaching Alfred Woden's inner chambers. There, Mona suddenly turns on Max, knocking him down with a pistol whip to the head. Mona tells Max that her job was to clean up the situation, which he's a part of, but ultimately she finds herself unable to. Mona throws her gun down just as Vladimir Lem arrives and fires his own, hitting Mona in the abdomen. Alfred Woden arrives and attempts to put a stop to the violence, but his pleas are met with another gunshot from Vladimir Lem, killing his old mentor. Max lunges at Lem, who triggers another explosive, bringing down the floor below them. Max then fights his way through the remaining cleaners to corner Vlad just below the roof. After one final, fierce battle between the old friends, Max brings down a structure on the roof, bringing it crashing down with Vlad on top of it, killing the Russian mobster in the fall. In the wake of the battle, Max crawls over to Mona's lifeless body, and he holds her one last time. The NYPD arrive looking for other survivors, and Max gives Mona one final kiss. The officers then find Max before calling him a medic. Or at least that's one possibility. In the other, Max returns to Mona to find that she cheated death once again, surviving another gunshot wound. The pair then hold each other as the NYPD officers report finding 2 survivors. Either way, Max dreams of his late wife once again, but this time, it's all right. This brings us to the end of Remedy's Max Payne saga, fully covering what we'll see captured in the upcoming remake. But, as we know, there's one more Max Payne story to tell. Max is once again able to convince the department of his innocence, revealing the connections between Winterson and Vladimir Lem. Jim Bravura decides that with 2 public accusations of murdering his partners, it's best that Max walk away from the NYPD. Jim gets Max a small pension, and the pair stay in touch until Jim's death. Following his retirement, Max moves to Hoboken, New Jersey, and begins to drink himself into a stupor. Throughout the 2000s, in the wake of Vinny Gogniti's death and the separation from the Inner Circle, the Punchinello crime family winds up dwindling and losing all power. While the absence of the Punchinellos sets New Jersey free from organized crime for a short while, another family begins to scrounge up the now available drug trade. One day in November of 2011, Max visits his wife and daughter's tombstones at the cemetery before returning to Walton's bar, which he spent the past 5 years frequenting. The night turns problemsome when Tony DeMarco, son of Don Anthony DeMarco, leader of the new mafia family taking hold in New Jersey, enters the establishment with his 2 men. Tony and his boys begin to harass Max, who gives it back just as strongly, upsetting the young man, who draws his gun on the former officer. Suddenly, another man, Raul Passos, pulls his own gun on Tony, instructing him to leave the bar. After DeMarco and his men leave, Passos introduces himself to Max. As it turns out, he's also former NYPD and actually went to the academy with Max. Passos tells Max that he's now doing private work as a bodyguard, and while he tries to recruit him, Max refuses. The pair spend a while drinking together at the bar before Tony DeMarco bursts back in, gun in hand. A female bar patron then stands up to Tony, aggravating him even more. The young DeMarco hits the woman with the butt of his pistol, sealing his fate, as Max, triggered by seeing another woman hurt in front of him, quickly pulls a gun and shoots Tony directly in the chest, killing the Mafia Prince. Max and Raul are then forced to fight through DeMarco reinforcements to escape the bar, fighting a small army of mobsters outside. Afterward, the 2 men return to Max's apartment to hide out and drink more. It doesn't take long before their party is crashed by Don DeMarco himself, arriving outside with his goons and seeking revenge for his only son's death. DeMarco's men storm the apartment complex, and Max is assisted by his neighbor, the crazed military veteran known only as Brewer. Brewer then blows himself up with a homemade explosive to protect Payne from some mobsters, allowing him to escape in the wreckage. Max and Raul then regroup and fight through the rest of DeMarco's men to eventually reach safety. Raul takes Max to a friend in Queens, New York, where they lay low for a few days. Before leaving town, the pair visit the cemetery once more, where Max says his goodbyes to his family. He's interrupted by DeMarco's goons, however, and he and Raul are forced to again shoot their way through the Don's army. The pair are eventually outnumbered, however, and are brought by gunpoint before Don Anthony DeMarco himself. Max and Raul try to apologize for his son's death, stating that Tony died in a war that he started, but the Don refuses to hear it, taking a shovel and attacking Raul. DeMarco then throws the shovel to Max, instructing him to dig his own grave before the Don is ushered off. Max and Raul are able to overpower DeMarco's men, and the pair fight their way inside the nearby funeral home. After making a final stand against the Mafia, Payne and Passos are able to find a phone. Raul calls his contact, and the pair are able to escape New Jersey, leaving the Mafia behind them for good and forcing Max to start a new life. This new life takes him to Sao Paulo, Brazil, where Raul convinces Max to work with him as a bodyguard to the wealthy Branco family. Initially believing the job to be easy money, Max boards a yacht in Panama and participates in the celebration festivities with Raul and Marcelo, the youngest of the Brancos. Feeling the effects of his alcohol consumption, Max goes to his cabin to lie down for a bit. A hungover Max is then awoken by gunfire, and he emerges from his room to find the yacht under siege by pirates. Max grabs his gun and shoots through the attackers to reach the deck of the boat. Max finds no signs of anyone besides the pirates, and soon learns that the yacht is sitting in the Panama Canal. After killing the pirates, Max spots Raul and Marcelo Branco loading something into a truck. Max convinces Raul to help him look for a passenger named Daphne on the boat, while Marcelo drives off. The pair fight their way back towards the yacht, but Max soon finds a dumping ground of the corpses of all of the party-goers. Something about the whole event doesn't sit well with Max, but he nonetheless returns to Sao Paulo to continue his work with Raul and the Brancos. A few weeks later, Max and Raul work protection for the Brancos at a fundraiser. Besides Rodrigo Branco, real estate mogul and eldest of the family, along with his wife Fabiana, several other heavy hitters attend the party. Included is a commander of a local special forces team called the UFE, Armando Becker, a detective for the local police department, Wilson da Silva, and a cosmetic surgeon named Arthur Fisher. Suddenly, the Broncos party is crashed once again, as armed men from the Commando Sombra gang storm the venue. The CS grunts take Rodrigo and Fabiana with them, forcing Max and Raul to spring into action and follow. Max is able to outmaneuver the attackers to save Fabiana before fighting through the small army of CS members to reach the garage where the kidnappers are trying to escape with Rodrigo. Max shoots through them just in time to prevent them from driving off with their captive. After rescuing Rodrigo, Max leaves him in the care of Armando Becker and the UFE, who begin to execute the surviving CS soldiers. Da Silva arrives and argues with Becker about this, who promptly leaves with the rest of the UFE forces. Just a couple days later, Max is back to work with Raul, escorting Marcelo, Fabiana, and her sister, Giovanna Tavares, on a night out. After taking a helicopter to Club Moderno, the family is yet again targeted by the CS and captured by armed men. Max engages in a massive shootout in the club, eventually getting back to the roof to meet Raul and Marcelo in the helicopter. The group spots Fabiana and Giovanna being loaded into another helicopter. While they're able to rescue Giovanna, the Commando Sombra captures and takes away her sister. Shortly after, Rodrigo gets a ransom letter from the CS demanding payment for Fabiana's safe return. He discusses his options with Max, Marcelo, and their middle brother Victor, a politician, eventually deciding to pay the ransom. Max and Raul then take the cash payment to a local football stadium for the exchange. After Max gives the CS their money, however, they are suddenly shot at by an unknown sniper. Max gets hit in the arm, and Raul takes him to the stadium's medical facility to patch him up. Max and Raul try to retrieve the duffel bag of cash from the CS, but they soon notice the new group of attackers killing them to take the money themselves. Raul notices that the attackers are heavily armored, and the pair take out the sniper. Raul then uses the rifle to cover Max as he follows the man with the bag, eventually switching roles with Passos once Max finds his own sniper rifle. Raul heads to secure a chopper while Max follows the money, eventually spotting a security camera feed of the paramilitary troopers preparing to execute the CS member who was holding the bag. The man pleads for his life, giving up Fabiana's location at the docks by the Chiete River, but his efforts are in vain, as he is quickly killed. The unknown men then get away with the bag of money, leaving Max and Raul to fight their way back to the helicopter to escape. As they fly off, two nearby men contemplate shooting the chopper down, but decide against it, as they've only been paid to get the money. Sometime later, Max and Raul take a speedboat to Fabiana's location on the river. On the way, Raul tells Max that he believes the paramilitary group that attacked them at the stadium is a vigilante Brazilian militia known as Crasha Preto. Raul pulls their boat into a CS-controlled harbor, and Max exits to search for any sign of Fabiana. Max spots who he soon realizes is the leader of the CS, a man the others refer to as Serrano. After Serrano leaves on a boat, Max fights through the CS stronghold to search for Fabiana. On the way, Max spots a security camera feed of Fabiana, beaten but still alive. Max shoots his way to the spot she's being held in, but he finds that her captors had just left with her. Soon, Max sees Serrano retrieving Fabiana, taking her with him. Max follows him to a pier, but is unable to stop Serrano from taking Fabiana to his boat before taking off. Serrano's men then shoot nearby fuel canisters, causing an explosion on the docks, sending Max flying into the waters. Raul pulls up and retrieves Max in his own boat, and the two chase Serrano down the river. While the pair are able to fight off a barrage of reinforcements, Max and Raul's boat eventually breaks down, allowing Serrano to escape. While Max and Raul lament over letting Fabiana slip through their fingers once again, they also wonder what they've gotten themselves into. Back home, Max's personal demons also continue to take hold, as his addiction to alcohol and painkillers spirals further and further out of control. Raul has to retrieve him so the two can return to the Broncos to plan their next move. Rodrigo decides that whatever happens, he's going to leave Sao Paulo once Fabiana is back with him. Afterward, Rodrigo confides in Max, but the pair are interrupted when they spot Crusha Preto soldiers attacking the building on a security camera feed. Rodrigo tries to lock down the office, but the security system is offline. Max then leaves Rodrigo to escort his IT guy to the server room to reset the system. Max gets the IT guy back to his station, and he's able to get the security system back running. Max then spots Rodrigo on his balcony, telling the man to stay locked up in his office to wait for him. Max fights through more arriving Crusha Preto, returning to Branco's office to find Rodrigo at his desk, dead from a bullet to his head. Max decides that although his employer is now dead, he'll still rescue Fabiana from her captors. Max notices a bomb under Rodrigo's desk, and he narrowly avoids the direct blast as he's thrown from the office. Max fights his way through the surviving Crusha Preto, including one who killed the IT guy, and escapes from the burning building. As he leaves and the building continues to crumble, he spots an injured soldier. Max asks him why the Crusha Preto were sent to kill Rodrigo Branco, but the man states that they were there to kill Max, as payback for him killing so many of them at the stadium. Max then asks the man where Fabiana is, and he states that the Comando Sombra have her up the hill. As thanks, Max drags the man out of the burning building. Now on a vengeful warpath, Max decides to take control of his life for the first time in years, throwing down the bottles of whiskey and pills. He then goes to his bathroom, grabs an electric razor, and shaves his head, signifying this new chapter. Max then goes to the nearby Nova Esperança favela to search for Fabiana, calling the remaining Branco brothers, Victor and Marcelo, to express his regrets for failing Rodrigo. While Victor is shocked to learn that Max is still alive, Payne tells them what he learned about Fabiana's location, agreeing to bring their sister-in-law back to them. Max is soon led by a kid who claims he can show him to some ladies. Predictably, Max is mugged by a group of criminals who proceed to take his glasses, watch, and weapon. Max attempts to get help from the locals, but he's quickly shunned by all of them. Payne finds himself in a strip club, where YouTube will definitely not be happy with what's going on, so use your imagination. Suddenly, Max is approached by Detective Wilson Da Silva, who offers to buy him a beer. Max takes a soda instead, and the pair chat, with Da Silva asking if Max recognizes Serrano. Da Silva claims that Serrano is small fry, and he's actually after Crusha Preto's leader, Alvaro Neves, as well as his right-hand man, Milo Rego. Strangely, Da Silva reveals Victor Branco's connection to Crusha Preto, implying that he had worked with the militant group in the past to clear some land Rodrigo wanted to develop on. Da Silva tells Max that he believes Max and Raul were allowed to leave the stadium attack alive, and that Victor, as well as the UFE, are somehow involved in the situation. Da Silva gives Max a gun and tells him that Fabiana is up the hill, and the pair agree to meet again if Max survives this encounter. After the detective leaves, Max is again hassled by local criminals, winding up in a shootout. Max continues his search for Fabiana up the hill, eventually reaching Serrano's estate. There, Max spots Marcelo and Giovanna with a suitcase of money to exchange for the badly beaten Fabiana's release. Max bursts into the building and interrupts the deal, which appears to have gone bad. Max is quickly outnumbered, and his gun is taken by Serrano's men. Serrano himself then points his pistol at Fabiana, and while Max tries to stop him, he's forced to watch another woman he was supposed to protect die right before him as Serrano pulls the trigger. He then shoots Marcelo in the leg, but the UFE soon storm the favela, leaving Serrano and his men to quickly scurry away with Branco, Giovanna, and the money. Max escapes from the sole guard left behind to watch him before he's forced to fight through the advancing UFE soldiers as he follows Marcelo and Giovanna's captors. Soon, Max spots the UFE beating and capturing innocent civilians, while executing any that try to escape. Max follows the UFE convoy and soon observes a meeting between the Special Forces group and Milo Rego, the second in command of Crusha Preto. Max is stunned to see Rego purchasing the captured civilians from the UFE. Max follows Rego after the deal and sees him with Giovanna, preparing to burn Marcello alive. Max rushes to try to stop them, but he's too late, as Marcello is immolated and killed. Max then grabs a machete from Rego and uses it to kill the man, allowing him to hide with Giovanna just before Alvaro Neves, Crusha Preto's leader, arrives. Giovanna then translates what Neves is saying to his men, informing Max that the Vigilantes' leader blames him for his friend's death. Max and Giovanna hide out for a few hours before escaping under the cover of night. They reach a payphone where Giovanna calls Raul Passos. The pair then hide out in a broken-down bus where the woman reveals that she's pregnant with Raul's child. Crusha Preto soldiers then arrive, searching for them, and Giovanna hides while Max fights them off. Afterward, the pair continue to follow this method as they try to escape to safety. Eventually, Giovanna is cornered at gunpoint by a Crusha Preto grunt, but Max is able to save her, taking her to a nearby bus, which the two commandeer. Giovanna drives while Max shoots off Crusha Preto aggressors. The pair soon spot Raul flying a helicopter above, but the distraction causes Giovanna to crash the bus. Giovanna rushes off to the helicopter, while Max stays behind to fight off the remaining soldiers. As he goes to join them, however, Max is saddened to see the family he just risked his own life to protect fly by without him. Instead, Max is given a ride by an arriving Wilson da Silva, fulfilling his agreement to have another conversation if Payne survived. In the car, da Silva reveals that Raul leaving Max behind may be the least of his concerns with his partner. As it turns out, Raul had been taking payments from Victor Branco on the side, including one to go to New York to find and recruit Max in the first place. The detective theorizes that Victor had Raul bring Max over to pin Rodrigo's death on him. Max can't believe that his friend would have been lying to him all along, but da Silva reminds Max about their initial job in Panama, and he realizes that the yacht they were on was actually smuggling money to be laundered. Believing Victor to be the mastermind behind Rodrigo's death to obtain whatever those funds were, da Silva decides to take Max to follow another lead. Some of the detective's officers saw the bus that was leaving with the captives Crusha Preto purchased from the UFE. Da Silva drops Max off at the bus's destination, the Crusha Preto-controlled Imperial Palace Hotel. Max sneaks into the hotel's basement, spotting Crusha Preto men throwing body bags containing the deceased into a furnace. Fighting through them, Max soon finds some documents tying the Crusha Preto to the UFE, and he takes them to give to Detective da Silva. He then comes across the captured civilians and sets them free. Among them, Max soon learns, is none other than Serrano, now a beaten and broken man. Max lets him go and continues to search the hotel, finding a makeshift morgue inside of a kitchen. There, Max sees cosmetic surgeon Arthur Fisher from the Bronco fundraiser Max previously worked, scrambling to escape. Max looks around and sees several dead bodies with organs removed. Payne confronts the doctor about what he's been doing, but Fisher simply states that he does important research. Serrano then finds his way to the morgue and grabs a scalpel. Max simply walks off, leaving Serrano to repeatedly stab the doctor, killing him. Max then finds a stash of C4 explosives and plants them around the columns of the building. Payne then fights his way to a helipad atop the hotel, holding the detonator and threatening to bring the entire thing down. Neves arrives and Max insults him for his organ trafficking operation. While Neves tries to claim that his business was legitimate, a disgusted Max presses the detonator button and the building begins to collapse around them. Max takes a final stand against Neves' men, but eventually loses his footing and falls. Neves then stands over Max and holds up his gun, preparing to kill him. Suddenly, a gunshot rings out, but Neves is the target, and he falls dead. Surprisingly, Raul Passos arrives, revealing that he returned to save his friend. Max accuses Raul of setting him up to take the fall for the organ harvesting operation, but Passos claims to have no idea what Max is talking about. While Raul was working for Victor behind Rodrigo's back, Victor had only told him that it was to get Rodrigo to loosen the purse strings on the family money. Max and Raul then escape the now fully collapsed hotel in a helicopter. Sometime later, Max, Da Silva, Raul, and Giovanna meet outside the police station. Giovanna gives Max her thanks while he expresses his regret for not being able to save her sister. Raul then says his goodbyes to his friend, leaving him with the parting words that life is worth living, before driving off with his new family. Max and Wilson then discuss their next move. Da Silva reveals that the UFE and Armando Becker have been working with Victor Branco to take out the competition in his family, as well as to facilitate the organ trafficking that has been funding his campaigns and other political endeavors. Max asks Da Silva if he's going after Victor, but the detective simply states that the level of corruption goes too high, and his wife and children would be killed if he tried to take it down. Max, on the other hand, with nothing to lose, would be a perfect candidate to take him down, Da Silva suggests. Max then turns himself in to the UFE, and when he is taken in for questioning, he's able to incapacitate the guards holding him. Max picks up their weapons and fights his way through the rest of the guards, noticing a riot breaking out causing mayhem in the holding cells, an event Max attributes to Da Silva. Max fights his way through the chaos, finding a security room where he finds a disc containing the footage from Rodrigo Branco's assassination, revealing that it was Becker's right-hand man, Bachmeier, who pulled the trigger. Max soon finds Bachmeier, and after a daring chase, Max catches and kills him. Max takes the dead man's keycard and enters his office, finding Armando Becker waiting inside. While Max goes to throttle Becker, he's stopped by Victor Branco, who emerges from the shadows with a pistol he presses against Max's head. Victor admits his hand in what's going on, thanking Max for being such a good employee. When Becker goes to take Payne's gun, Max jumps into action and headbutts Victor, but Becker is able to tase Max so the two can escape. While they lock the door behind them, Max determines Victor and Becker must be heading to the airport to fly away. Max reunites with Da Silva, who drives him to the airport terminal. Max enters the airport while Wilson drives off to look for the Branco plane. Becker's men immediately spot Max and open fire, forcing him to fight a grueling battle with him taking on a massive number of UFE soldiers throughout the airport. Max reaches a tram to Branco's gate, and once he boards it, he finally takes a breather, sitting down and preparing for his final confrontation. For just a moment until a bullet flies through the window of the tram and whizzes right past him. Max then has a shootout with UFE soldiers on the neighboring tram. When Max reaches the hangar, he spots Victor getting on the plane, with Becker following closely behind. Max calls attention to himself, getting Becker to turn around to face Max, donning a bulletproof shield and a grenade launcher. Max fights off Becker's reinforcements while avoiding his grenades, eventually shooting one just as Becker fires it off, causing it to explode in the UFE commander's face. Max then walks over to see Becker with his arm blown off and the rest of his body severely burned. Max is then left to decide whether to let Becker suffer and die from his wounds or put him out of his misery. After Becker's fate is decided, Da Silva pulls up in his car and Max gets in, wielding Becker's grenade launcher out of the vehicle's sunroof. Max is then able to use the explosives to take out several armed UFE vehicles before he shoots the plane, destroying it and preventing Victor's escape. Max then runs over to the wreckage to find the man, threatening to kill him. Da Silva convinces Max to let him suffer, and Payne lowers his weapon. Victor begins to laugh, telling Max that even if he has to answer for his crimes, he'll walk. Max agrees before kicking the man's leg, snapping it while stating that while he'll walk, it'll be with a limp. Meanwhile, sirens approach in the distance. A week later, on a beach in Bahia, Brazil, Max watches a news report announcing Armando Becker and the UFE's involvement in the organ harvesting operation, leading to their disbandment. Victor Branco was also exposed as being at the center of the scandal, and was later found hanged in his police cell. Max then walks along the beach with a duffel bag before literally walking off into the sunset. This brings us to the end of the story of Max Payne, a saga of pain, revenge, and redemption that has captured the imaginations of gamers all around the world. From the gritty streets of New York to the grimy favelas of Sao Paulo, Max's journey has been one of tragedy, punishment, and rebirth. As we look forward to seeing how Remedy Entertainment will reimagine their iconic series, it's important to remember the roots from which these stories grew, and the incredible performances that brought them to life. A special thanks again to James McCaffrey, whose voice and portrayal of Max Payne defined a character and an experience that will remain in all of our hearts forever. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. I hate to be cliche after that, but remember to like, comment, and subscribe, hit the bell, all of that so you can stay updated with my content here at Suggestive Gaming. If you have any thoughts on Max Payne's saga, or what you're hoping to see from the upcoming remake, or even just what you want to see me cover next, please drop a comment below. I love hearing what you guys think. And also, huge thanks to the folks on screen who help support me putting these out, and you can be one too. Links in the description. Until next time, I'm Suggestive Gaming signing off. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care, guys.